It's another sunny day on the Lewis River. Welcome to Spirit River Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. In fact, we met, maybe 12, 14 years ago. I taught a Reiki class in Cottage Grove, and that is how I met Miche Meizner. Miche is a transformational coach and energy worker blending wisdom and woo since 2002. That's a rhyme.
Yeah.
Certified in over half a dozen modalities, including Reiki, Theta Healing, Pranic Healing, Matrix Energetics. She also is the creator of Cosmic Attunement and the Clear Path coaching system. She's actually best known for her spoon bending workshops. Whoop-de-doo, we're going to go into the Matrix.
Yes, we are.
Experiential sessions where people discover firsthand how shifting awareness can change what looks solid and fixed. For Miche, it's not about the spoon, it's about what becomes possible when you change the way you see yourself. Through her work, Miche helps people clear what's stuck, deepen self-love, and reconnect with their inner knowing so they can be the gift they came here to be. Welcome, Miche. So nice to see you again.
Yeah, Petra, it's been a long time and
What
we've
an
been
honor.
busy. It's so exciting. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. Uh,
Yeah.
it's really lovely. Yeah.
So, look, let's start all the way back when we met in what, 2010?
Yeah, something like that. Around then, yeah. I
2000,
remember
2010.
you had a retreat for Reiki 1 and 2, which I had already been at, but I went again. So I'm a two-time 1 and 2. And yeah, I was in a big transition right then. I had just split up with the love of my life, and I just remember being all brokenhearted in your workshop while doing all this work, and I remember you just saying like I don't remember exactly what you said, but that you saw me really doing my work, really sharing something and bringing something through important, and I had no idea what that was.
Well, you stood out in the class, in the
Uh,
cards, because I
yeah,
saw you right away that number one, you were here to heal people and
right.
you had incredible gifts, and that just came right through. Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically that's what I've been doing. And
Mhm.
the thing about my phrase of "be the gift that you came here to be" is tell my life story and about that much. When I was 5, somehow I got the message that I was supposed to save the world, and I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't know who told me, but I took it really seriously, and I spent all of my growing up, my teens, my young adulthood, really into my 40s trying to figure out what what does that look like? Who do I have to be in order to be that? And what path is that? And I was miserable trying to do that. We met in 2010 or whatever. That means I would have been 50 already. So I was finally figuring out a little bit. And what I finally came to is that I'm already who I was supposed to be, right? And so instead of keep trying to go learn to be somebody, which is not the same as, learning skills or learning a modality, right? But like
Mhm.
trying to have to be someone that I wasn't, to
Yeah.
embrace that who I am, my basic innate, caring and goodness and essence was already right on. And actually I thought maybe when I was 5 I kind of misunderstood. Maybe the message I got was you have to go and save the world. And what I think of it now is maybe the message was, the world could use some help, and you're here to help uplift, and just go you be you, and that will help. And I think that's what so many of us are here to be and to do, but just in being ourselves, whatever that looks like. You were just talking about your cat showing up after being 5 days. So my cat just decided to join us,
Ah, hi, Kitty.
and she likes to come on the Zooms too. Anyway, maybe she came to send some love to your cat.
Aw.
Uh, anyway, so it was a very long protracted process of a lot of depression, and I would say even self-hatred and sense of failure that I had to work through to finally get to really loving myself, appreciating myself, and I think to even begin to think that whatever you saw in me
Mhm.
could really be true. And
Oh, yeah.
and but I made it, right? And so now the work that I do, whatever it is, whether it's spoon bending or doing energy work or coaching,
Mhm.
is in hopes of helping other people find their self love and find their. It's like we all have our superpowers, whatever that is, you know, and to find that and appreciate that in within yourself. And if I can shorten somebody's learning curve so that they can spend more time being instead of struggling to find that, then I will have succeeded in my mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was always hoping that we would eventually create a planet, where we're no longer in poverty consciousness and
Mm-hmm.
in this perpetual survival place,
Right.
of
Right.
of
Well.
running, running, running to make ends meet and having no time to really explore the self. I
Mm-hmm.
was fortunate enough, to sort of check out of the system at a very young age. At how old was I? I was 22 when I went to India because I really had no choice. I was not given a choice. I
Mm-hmm.
had to meditate, or I would have probably just taken my life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I would have not
Yeah.
stayed. And then
Right.
Jesus came to me and said, "Oh no, this story is not over. You're staying. I
Yeah.
have a teacher for you. He's gonna come for you." So I'm not doing this alone. So tell me, so I followed you over the years from a distance, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope that this distance is going to be a whole lot shorter from now on, and we get together.
I
I'd love to
would
get
love
together
to,
with you. Yeah, I would love that too. And
and
I
not
want.
that far away. So in a few hours drive, I think. Yeah.
Yes, I watched you, losing your home to the fires in Eugene. And oh
Right.
my God, I mean, you lost everything. You were a jewelry maker. You lost all of your equipment. You lost everything you owned.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
is life for you now after
Right.
all of
Yeah.
these things that happened to you?
Right. That was intense. That was in 2020, and we live out in Blue River, just 5 miles from where the fire started.
Mhm.
And without going into that whole story, but my partner and I, with our three dogs and cat, drove out, and the trees were in flames already along the highway by the time we were leaving, and we were some of the first to leave. Anyway, yeah, we lost our our home and outbuildings and my jewelry studio, and somewhere I'm standing on top of rubies and diamonds somewhere here, like under the ground. We've rebuilt. So we've rebuilt. We lost so many trees, but other new things are growing up, and I'm very blessed and happy to be living where we are. Um, we chose to, instead of rebuilding the big garage that was here, to get a larger house, um, and which turned out to be a blessing because then we were able to take my mother and move her from Florida to here.
Mhm.
She was only with us for 4 months, but it was an incredible gift and blessing. It was. I
Yeah.
wanted my mother to feel safe and loved,
Mhm.
as she ended her life, and she did. She was surrounded by family and friends. So, uh, had some incredible experiences with her in those few months.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I've got a small building that I've recreated as a studio. So I'm making jewelry again. Don't have everything that I lost. I mean, I've been a goldsmith jeweler for 50 years.
Ah,
Started when I was in high school, and so I had amassed, a lot of tools and everything. But anyway, so I've got a pretty functional studio now, and I also have been having fun making wind chimes, kind of upcycled. I use kitchenware and spoons and knives and forks and baking, like bundt cake things, and I hang things off, and just all these fun wind chimes that sound lovely and just keep me busy. Um,
nice.
And yeah, so that's the, so the creative side. And then work wise or spirit wise, I teach spoon bending workshops, as you mentioned. And I do it because in the process of bending a spoon, you learn to relax. You discover that force is not the thing. Like we're taught, push harder, nose to the grindstone, shoulder to the wheel, try harder, work harder, no pain, no gain, and all that. And the thing with spoon bending is the more you relax and allow, the easier it is to bend something that you couldn't bend a minute ago. And I teach that to people so that they apply that in their life,
Well, that's so fascinating. I would love for you to teach a workshop like that here.
right?
Oh,
Oh my God, that would be awesome. I'm
yeah.
actually teaching one. I teach online. I have taught in person. That's where I started, but I've been teaching online for 10 years. I've
Mhm.
got one coming up on Wednesday, so anybody can join me for that. But oh
Oh,
my gosh, I would love to do
definitely.
it in person.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We absolutely have to talk about that because I get it. When you watch the spoon bending in the Matrix,
Hmm.
where
Right.
Neo says to the little boy, to the protege,
Right.
he said, "How did you do that?" And he says, "You see, it is not the spoon that bends."
Right.
And
You,
remember that
yes,
scene in the Matrix?
you have,
Yeah,
you
I'm
have,
assuming that's what you're doing to
right.
teach people. It isn't the spoon that bends, it is
Right.
you that
Your
bends.
perception and your awareness, your sense of possibility, right? And so to do that with a spoon in your hand, it's tangible, it's right there in the moment, because we do that kind of thing all the time. We're always bending reality somehow, but we're not usually aware of it. A lot of it is by default. A lot of it is not bending it the way we really want to bend it. We're bending in the opposite direction. And so it's a way to become aware and notice what
Hmm.
you do or what does it take or how do you get into that space. And then how do you recreate that and do that in the rest of your life with more intention.
Hmm.
So it's a great way for people who are like new to all of this, and then it's also great. You know, I figure if we're still alive and breathing, we're still growing and learning, and we all have maybe blind spots or just stuff we don't know yet. So even I've had people who are like shamanic practitioners, or can move energy, do all sorts of things, come to my workshop and find their own. You kind of find where you're stuck so that you can get unstuck, and had one woman really powerful, shamanically, energetically powerful, and she couldn't do it, and she basically said like, "Don't embarrass me," to her, guides or whatever, right? And that's what it took, and then she bent her spoon, or someone who had to tap into her uh, the the presence that she gets as a craniosacral therapist, and once she did that, that alignment that she feels in her energetic work, then she was able to bend the spoon.
So becoming so it works like can you describe how it works? Like how do you teach it? Give me the
Yeah.
gist of it.
So, right. Well, so, I mean, the gist of it is really that there's not like a way that I teach. I mean, a method. It can be individual, different for each person, but it's about coming into a presence, a quietness, and allowing. I mean, some of the things that are common no matter what is, our self talk is going on all the time. We don't necessarily notice. I knew mine because it was so loud, but to notice, okay, if you're saying to yourself, this is crazy, or I can't do this, or, well, you can do it because, you meditate, but I could do it because I eat red meat, or, whatever. To notice what we're saying and to just let that be, just set it aside and to be in wonder. I wonder what's possible. How could it be? What might it feel like? And to allow. And that's kind of the fundamental, the basis of it. And then we each find our ways differently to relax. For some people it would be okay, a moment of meditation.
Mm.
Actually, the time when people most likely to bend their spoon in my workshop, I tell them when they stop listening to me. I'm talking, I'm telling stories, and they just sort of kind of, zone out the way you may be a kid in a class. And
Mhm.
when they do that, what they're doing actually is dropping that sense of I have to do this a certain way, or there's a right way or a wrong way, and they just
Yeah.
relax, and then they just bend their spoon. So it's Bruce Lee had a line that I learned actually in Matrix Energetics training. Uh, no way as the way, right? So it's almost like with the spoon bending. There's no particularly what way is the way. It's when you drop thinking that there has to be a way.
You know,
And
it's the same thing that happened to me when I was in India. I was always, how do you reach enlightenment? How do you get to enlightenment? My guru always talked about reaching enlightenment.
yeah,
And I'm like, my goodness, we were sitting from 6 to 10 hours a day in meditation. I spent years and years and years not sleeping in the bed because I was so determined to reach enlightenment. But the harder you try, the
yeah,
less you get there. And then what would happen is when you have an experience, like a vision,
mm,
and you're allowing it and you're ever so grounded and you're leaving your body, but the second your thoughts come in, and take over, oh, I'm having a vision, the vision's gone.
right, yeah. That's I talk about that with the spoon bending. It's like the
Yeah.
wind is a window, an opening of opportunity, window of opportunity, and as soon as you go, it slams shut,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so it's to find that a kind of a calm and allowing, and also talk about letting go of the outcome, right? Like when you're going to throw a rock into pebble into a pond, you have to let go at some point. You
Yeah.
plan the trajectory, you pick the rock you want, and you start to throw it, but then if you don't let go, you never get the result. And the same thing, it's it's a little bit confusing. You come to a workshop to bend a spoon, and then I tell you let go of wanting to bend a spoon, and yet I want you to hold on to the spoon and try to bend it without caring whether you bend it or not, right? Which I think there's a lot of that in the wanting to achieve enlightenment or just whatever state for meditation is uh, not too tight, not too loose. Was
Right.
one of the meditation instructions I got years ago. Right?
Well, it's interesting, because people ask, so did you reach enlightenment all these years in India and on the
Yeah.
spiritual path? And I said, it's irrelevant because in
Yeah.
the moment that you reach enlightenment, you no longer need to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because what really is enlightenment, in my understanding, or at least for myself,
Yeah.
it is actually being willing to really do this journey as a human being and
Uh-huh.
not trying to disappear and get out of here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's why I talk about wisdom and woo, because it's
Yeah.
not just all about woo. It's not about, I'm not teaching people to transcend. I'm not trying to transcend and get out of here. Well, I spent quite a few years in the beginning thinking I don't want to be here. I don't belong here.
Right.
But now it's about how to bring the divine eternal being that we are into living, right, into being the human. So that's the wisdom part, is like, how do you navigate everyday life, but
Mm.
how do you do it with some magic, or some little spoon bending. I have a program called the Spoon Bender's Way, and it's taking those points of spoon bending or similar in enlightenment, and how do you live everyday life like that. How do you look at something, and instead of going like, oh, that's too hard, to
Mhm.
instead say, huh, I wonder what this experience might be like.
So, how did you find this particular piece of information to serve you so well?
Right? I know, it's crazy. Well, as a jeweler, I was already, used to working with things with my hands. But I was always, even as a kid, interested in like paranormal things and metaphysical. You know, Grew up in the 60s and 70s. There wasn't a whole lot out there, and certainly online. In, I guess this was maybe the 90s or early 2000s, when I was working at my bench, I would like to listen to different things, uplifting or metaphysical. So, there were cassette tapes back in the day, right? Of Wayne Dyer or Deepak Chopra or Pema Chodron was kind of my introduction to Tibetan Buddhism. But online, there was like talk shoe or something. I mean, it's not like it was now, but there was News for the Soul by Nicole Whitney. Are you familiar? Maybe you even know her. Uh,
No, I don't.
she's had this radio show called News for the Soul, like a station, for maybe 30 years now, and she was interviewing. Let me see if I could, like Greg Braden and Danny. What's his name? The guy who got killed by lightning like three times.
Dan Brinkley?
And yeah, Danny Brinkley. All these people who, if you followed, Hay House or that whole line of books, she was interviewing all these people, Sachin Raja, and she was selling a spoon bending kit. And so I was listening to her and I thought, oh, spoon bending, that sounds pretty interesting. And I bought her kit and I went out, got some spoons, and I bent a spoon. My first spoon I bent by imagining that I was holding my jeweler's torch on it, heating it red hot, in my mind's eye. And so I knew red hot metal is, you can bend like a blacksmith or a jeweler. And I bent my spoon. And then I tried to get my partner and my grandson to, nobody could bend theirs. And so I gave it up. And about 10 years later, 8 years later, um, I guess it was not long after our workshop. It was actually right around then. I was teaching. I was running a meetup for teaching like psychic skill building, different things, and
Mhm.
it popped into my head. Just like let's like go get spoons. I didn't know what to do. The coming meeting, and so I ran out to the thrift store and I got some spoons and I explained to my 4 or 5 people what to do, and not everybody, but most of us bent our spoons and the light bulbs went off, of like, what just happened? I couldn't do it, and then I did. And when I realized that I could sort of hold that container and help people do that, and that they understood that that was an amazing thing that just happened, that they just created this ability, then I was off and running. I started teaching in person. I was at a channeler friend who runs retreats or ran retreats. So I went to her retreat, and there were like 18 people that I did the spoon bending with, and there were a few of them who they bent their spoons and they put it down on the table and walked away, and I was like, wait a minute, don't you like? Do you understand what you just did?
Mhm.
And either they did and they didn't care, or they didn't get it, but I saw the potential, and for me, like I was listening to Nicole's radio show and all these guests. And I remember there was one guy, I don't remember who it was. He talked about being woken up in the middle of the night. And in the corner of his room, there was this like 6 foot tall, 8 foot tall blue man. And the guy took him on a tour of the cosmos and explained life and all this, the universe and all of that. And the guy saying like, I didn't want this, I didn't want any of this. And I'm sitting there listening, I'm like, me, I want this, I want a blue guy showing up in my room, or I want to know these things. I always want to know for myself, not just hear stuff, and I believe them, but I didn't have the experience. And so for me, when I bent that first spoon, that was my proof, right? That was my hands-on, okay, when you shift, your thinking or your energy, something else is possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, law of attraction and manifest your reality and all that stuff, like I understood it, I believed it, I tried to practice it, but it's hard to track, right? So many things going on all the time. You can't really tell, like, okay, on Tuesday, I, wished for, I don't know, a new client, and a month and a half later, somebody showed up. It's hard to see, that, but
Right.
you come to my workshop and we say, we're going to bend a spoon. And then before you leave, 90% of people have bent their spoon or several. You can track that,
Yes.
right? And so when I made that connection for myself, but then I couldn't teach people, it wasn't too useful. I mean, right? But when I figured out that I could teach people and they could get it, that's when it really became a powerful tool for me.
When people realized, oh my God, I just bent a spoon.
Right.
What else am I capable of doing?
Exactly.
How
Right.
else can I now create my reality.
Yeah.
I'm
And I
really in charge of my reality.
exactly. And I talk about that, through the whole workshop. I keep making those connections of like where else is this useful, or even sometimes just to be able to have an opportunity to find out what it is that you say to yourself and how you get in your own way or how to get out of your way. There's one workshop, I kind of check in. I keep them small so I can check in with people. How's it going? What's coming up? And this one woman said, well, I woke up, I didn't really feel so good today, so I don't think I'm going to be able to bend it. I said, what if that had nothing to do with it? Right? It's like you
Yeah.
just put that in front of yourself as the reason that you can't do something. What if that wasn't? And then she bent her spoon. Right? And somebody else said, well, I try to do things and it always takes like way into until like time is almost up. I said, so you created a rule for yourself. What if you created a different rule? What if you made a different uh, pact with yourself? Right? You made a
So,
different choice.
how do people react when they can't bend the spoon? Like, what's there?
Right? Surprise, confidence, excitement. Uh, Sometimes one of the first things is to not believe it. You bend your spoon and then you think, there must have been something wrong with this spoon. Right? Which is why I tell people to bring 2 or 3 spoons. So that if you think that, then you try another one. Or you bend a spoon, like here's one that I've bent in the past.
Well, that
And
looks like a very cool bending.
right? And then, even so, I've been doing this for years, and I think, well, maybe the spoon was really too soft, and I just didn't notice it. So then, you try to unbend it, and it doesn't want to unbend. Uh, so there's disbelief, and so we look at that too, and we look at, especially as women, we set a goal for ourselves, and then we meet it, and then we question it, or we act like, well, I guess it wasn't that hard. That must have been easier than I thought because I just did it and it wasn't hard for me. Rather than acknowledge, look what you just did, right? And take credit for it and let it be something special that you just accomplished. And
So,
then go further,
can you speak on the scientific part of that? Like when people go inward, and I'm assuming you put them into meditation, right?
nope, I
Don't
don't.
put them
I,
into meditation. What do you do? I want to know what you do. Tell me what you
you
do.
know, I scientifically or whatever, like I can't, or maybe the closest I can get, I went for a weekend to study matrix energetics with Richard Bartlett 10 years ago or something. I don't know. Um, And one of the things that he talked about was the idea of the probability wave. And he taught something called two pointing, where you sort of in physics they say you can either measure the speed of something or the location, but you can't do both. And I mean, it sort of makes sense because if something's moving, how could you pinpoint where it is because it keeps moving? So you sort of grab hold of this imaginary point over here and an imaginary point over here, and it almost makes your brain split to try to hold them both at the same time. And he talks about it collapsing a wave of possibility and something else can happen.
Mm.
So it's almost as if that, and this is not particularly the way I teach it, although I might on Wednesday, you know, take 1 point here and 1 point here and collapse them into something else. And so it's not, you don't have to go deep. There's no, I don't know. It's just allowing something else to happen. I think that change and magic is so available, but we don't
Mm.
know how. And we have been taught that if it's available at all, it's elaborate. It requires, ritual, or it requires years of meditation, or,
Mm.
something very special. And the thing that I love about spoon bending, and I do teach, we're using our hands and we are using our physical force. I'm not teaching, and I haven't managed yet to stare at the spoon or do like Uri Geller and say like, okay, you're getting soft, you're getting, and then have it just flop over. We're using force, but we're starting with spoons that with just force alone, you can't bend, right? It's too thick, too. And then I just, one way or another, have people just step into possibility. What if? What if I could do this? And sometimes I'll have people meditate for a minute or imagine energy coming down top of your head and out your arms and making a circuit, but that's actually kind of takes too long and it's too elaborate. And I just have people, even while I'll say, look, I'm just going to keep talking and you just keep checking your spoon now and then. Go like this, go like that, and see. And so many people say, there was when they bend their spoon and I'm like, okay, what just happened? What was going on? And they'll say, it felt like the spoon wanted to bend or it was ready to bend. And then something just happened in that moment. And it is so accessible. Not everybody, not every time, but a very high percentage in the workshop, and then some who don't do it shortly afterwards. And I've taught from 7 year olds to 80 year olds. I had my own mom with her arthritic hands bend a spoon in half, and she couldn't even believe it, staring at it. She was like, what did just happen? Which is a lot what people say. So yes, I applied force. You can see there's like a, crease in my hand. I definitely pushed, but I couldn't do that. For me, I can sort of jump in and out of that state, but it's not because I meditated for years or hours or whatever beforehand. It's very accessible.
Everyone has it.
Yes. And it can be that simple, and so can all sorts of other things in your life, which is why I teach it, right? Because this is cool. And I tell people, keep it around somewhere where you can see it and you can remember what you just did, so that something like when you're about to get on a phone call with your ex to talk about who's taking the kids when, and it's always a difficult situation, you can instead say to yourself, I wonder how it could be different this time. And
So
just have,
you're sort of writing, you're influencing your present time by, rather than putting the message out, oh my God, he's going to reject taking the kids. Oh my God, this is going to happen. And you're all in this negative vortex.
exactly.
You're now rewriting the future as to the outcome you want to see. And then you feel into it. And then that's exactly what will happen.
Right. Although sometimes it's not even, it's sort of a general what you want to see, right? But like I teach people, to say like what else is possible, but don't answer. Because if you answered a question, you can only answer it from the reference points that you have, right? As a human being having lived in this conditioned life. So I say ask what else is possible and let the angels answer, let God answer, let your guides answer,
Yeah.
let synchronicity answer, right? So that we don't know. And even sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I was going to bend the spoon and I thought it was going to go this way. And then all of a sudden, last minute, I just felt like it wanted to go this way. And then it bent like that. And so it's,
I love this.
it's like coming into like almost a neutral space, right? Where you're dropping your script, you're dropping conditioned
Yeah.
expectations or responses. And so it's about learning to do that in your life.
We're just getting so mental is the problem. We block it with the mind.
Yes.
It's so much easier, isn't it, Miche?
Right.
And, and,
Right.
and we just become so analytical and so obsessed with our thoughts. And then that just blocks it all.
Right. And believing that we have to, know or train or work harder or whatever. And of course, there are things to be gained from all of that, obviously. But there's things to be gained from just being and wondering. I wonder, what is that? What would it feel like to have this bend in my hand and ask those questions and just see what shows up and to allow that, right? And say, I was just making a little video the other day, bending spoons, but trying to get people to understand why bend a spoon. I mean, it's a cool sort of party trick, but that's not the why. The why is so that you see what's possible, you know, with other stuff. And so, go do this. And if you're, and the first thing that happens when you come up against a challenge in your life, you think, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do. And you get scared or shut down or or you think you have to go to the library and read 10 books about it or whatever, and what if instead you just say, huh, I wonder what that would be like. I wonder, I wonder if some part of me knew how to do this. How would I go about it? And then,
Yeah.
like a child, just like play and see what comes up, right? So it's all of these different ways and things that I present during the workshop, and I don't have a script, and I don't have a this is how you do it, because it changes every time I teach it, and every time depending on who's there,
Well,
right?
it goes back to, unless you become like a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So you have to be childlike,
Right. But
innocent.
it's right here though. It's right here. We don't know. We can't see it,
Yeah.
you
Huh.
know?
Fascinating. Very fascinating. You're obviously familiar with Greg Braden, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen that episode that he did on the translation of the Bible, where he's translated that part of the Bible where, ask and it shall be given unto you. And he translated and went into a very elaborate explanation. And I'll put this in the notes with Miche's information as well on this YouTube. And it's a video on this whole thing about translating it into Aramaic or Greek. And the original version of that was very different from the way it was translated into English.
Right.
It comes back to what you're saying, what you're talking about with the spoon bending.
Right.
So rather than saying, ask for something to happen,
Right.
acknowledging there is a lack thereof,
hmm
actually already know that it is within you
Right.
because you have a God-given right to receive it.
Right. I'm not much of a Bible reader, but I pick up things here and there. And, I've heard Jesus saying, like, all this and more
Yes.
you can do. And another one of Greg Braden's stories where he talks about uh, going out with a Native American guy to call in rain.
Yes, I saw
He's
that.
like,
That
what do you
was
do? And
so
the
good.
guy's like,
Yeah.
sloshing his feet around. He's like, you don't pray for rain, you be in a state of having rain. And so he's playing in the mud that isn't there, right? You imagine that you're already in the state. And so, it's another way that people get into the spoon is like, okay, if it was already bent,
Right.
who do I need to be to be the spoon bender? Or somebody invited her roommate or her friend, and they're sitting on the couch together, and 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in, the roommate's like bent four spoons and she hasn't, done anything to budge, and she's getting frustrated, and that is not the spoon bending place. And so she decided to channel and pretend that she was her friend, and she bent it.
Wow.
So to embody it in whichever way, and also, I don't know if you're familiar with Bashar, who
Oh,
Daryl Anka
yeah, definitely.
channels, right? And why did I just bring him up? Because permission slips. He talks about all these different trainings and things as giving ourselves permission slips to access what we already have,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, all the different healing modalities that I trained in were all permission slips to be able to, feel something or shift something with my energy. We can all do it. We just don't know how to access that. And um, like it's the same with when you stop listening to me, about how to bend the spoon, and you just find your way to bend the spoon. There was a big shift for me with my energy work when I stopped trying to hold my hand just like the reconnection guy and do the 2 point just like the matrix guy, and remember what that I have no recollection what the Reiki symbols are, and just embodied my own knowing and what comes, as a download through me. And that's when what I was capable of bringing, went off the charts, because I wasn't thinking, well, do I this, do I that? It's like it's constrictive. It's you learn, but then be you, right? Because we each have our own way, and we each have our own knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so curious how you went to this place of releasing all this mental anguish, and you just decided, no more. I am going to change my life. I'm going to be a spoon bender. I'm going to do all of these, I'm going to learn all these modalities. So you were definitely a seeker.
All my life, all my life.
Always. Mhm.
Yeah. And a seeker with trauma and depression and stress. So now I'm a seeker without that, which is much better, because right. I mean, I'm still seeking, but I'm not so much looking to like fill a hole
Yeah.
as to just keep going, right? I'm excited. I want to learn stuff and know stuff, and I don't understand why we can't just reverse, shift stuff in our bodies because we're just energy anyway, and
Yeah.
just trying to figure things out. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm always wondering.
I believe that it is possible to teach, just like Reiki, when people for the first time recognize, oh my goodness, I can actually make somebody feel better by just putting their
Mhm.
hands on them and doing
Right?
Reiki or spoon bending or whatever modality that you've learned, remote viewing, like Elizabeth April and so forth. Like this is going to become so popular. People are going to start to seek a lot of this. The times are changing, the world is changing. We're moving into a new sphere, we're moving into another dimension.
Mhm.
My guru talked about it 40 years ago, that we have one foot in the photon belt and that the golden age was coming. And I
Mhm.
asked him, well, what's the golden age like? He says, very simple. You turn around and you're in it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's
Right.
nowhere to go per se.
Right. Right.
I I believe that there's a mass awakening now, and I don't know where you're at with that, and if you're feeling that. I mean, years ago, I could have never talked about cloning or any of the things I talk about.
Uh-huh.
Walk-ins,
Right.
like there's a chapter in my book about walk-ins in
Okay.
people's ashes. It wasn't like something I mentioned. And now everybody, oh yeah, okay, walk-ins, clones, hybrid, it's normal.
Right. Yeah, definitely things are shifting. I don't know a lot about that, but I certainly, I
Yeah,
mean, I know it's out there.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, very exciting. So where is your journey taking you next? How do people get a hold of you? What's your plan for the future?
Whew, okay. Well, I'm excited about, keep doing that, teaching the spoon bending. And uh, people can find me on Facebook under Miche Meizner or Miche Shines. My website, spoonbenderscafe.com. And I actually don't have a front page right now, but spoonbenderscafe.com/bend spoons. So that's up to date with my upcoming spoon bending workshops. I just started teaching a spoon bending level 2, where it's not as much about the bending of the spoon itself, but how do you keep bending yourself, and how do you keep doing that when you're in everyday life, and you're shifting, and the people around you are maybe, kind of just staying the same. What do you do with that, and how do you hold it? And like I mentioned before, I have an 8 week Spoon Benders Way program, which is really about anchoring that. How do you keep bringing the magic to everyday life that wants to just keep pulling you back into conditioning and habit.
Fascinating. That is so exciting. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Um, I'm just starting to offer group sessions where you basically come and just relax, and I'm channeling through energy to just sort of for your own highest good. I don't know what it is. I'm just bringing it through, and sometimes I'm doing things that I am feeling inspired or shown or told. um, 6 7 years ago now, I got this download from my healer guides, and what it became I came to call the cosmic attunement. And I'm just given a lot of visuals. I thought that's a one-to-one individual work. But this group thing is sort of more where I'm bringing in healing energy for people. And it's nondescript. I mean, you could come in with an intention for something and hopefully receive that, but I'm just kind of calling in the energy, the healing, the source energy for people. Um, and then individually, I work with people on what I'm calling like resetting your original blueprint, right? The idea if you came in to this life with, all your trillions of cells knew what to do, they knew how to talk to each other, they knew how to operate, and things get, clogged or misconstrued, or some of the code gets messed up. Again, I'm bringing in energy and maybe collapsing some waves, and also working with beliefs that are running under your radar, kind of like theta healing, or emotion code kind of thing. The idea that there's beliefs or situations that happen that get our energy stuck and hold patterns, and so releasing patterns. And then this cosmic attunement, which I liken to, if you imagine that you're in a little spaceship, like you came here in a little space suit or space bubble, and so many of the healing modalities that we have are really, I mean, they're working on all different levels, but they're focused on the body or the chakras, or that kind of thing. So this cosmic attunement modality that I was given is more about like the vehicle that you're traveling in, right? So sometimes I'm actually metaphorically, I'm changing your filters and shifting the fluids or washing your windshield, the idea that if you're in this little spaceship running around, you got, debris, you got dead bugs on your windshield. How are you going to communicate with the rest of the world that way? So I'm clearing things off, and it shifts things for people amazingly, and it's so fun and almost silly in some of the metaphors and the images, but it's all metaphor. I mean, it's like we're metaphors. We're metaphors for our souls having a life down here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
beautiful.
so I just more of this of that the same. I'm looking forward to being seen and received by more people.
I have an idea, and the
Great.
idea is to actually do a live workshop.
Sure.
That would be really a lot of fun because we have a retreat center here. We're on the river in
Love
Woodland,
to do
and
that.
it would be really fun to have you teach a workshop. And
Right?
uh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the dates and let's do something really fun.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm totally in. Yeah.
I'm totally in. I want to bend a spoon, Miche.
Right. Yeah, great. And then, we could take longer and be like, okay, that's like level one. And then, in the morning and then in the afternoon, we're like, okay, let's bend our lives.
Yeah. How do
Right?
we bend our lives? This is very exciting. I think you can do anything.
Mhm.
And so can everyone else.
Right.
I think we just have to take our limitations and really, let go of the program, the paradigm that
Right.
doesn't serve us anymore.
Yeah. Right. When you first brought up Greg Braden, what I thought of is the video clip that he shows of the folks in a hospital in China, and a woman with a very large tumor on her liver or something, and the doctors are standing around and they're saying like "wasa wasa." Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not.
I will find it. I will send you the link. So
Yeah.
you can see on a live like ultrasound feed this woman's tumor, and 4 or 5 doctors in a Chinese hospital are chanting. I think he said "wasa" means something like already done or healed or something like. So they're doing the pray rain, right? They're seeing it already dissolved and healed, and you see the tumor shrink right on the ultrasound, like
Mhm.
in minutes, right? And this is what we're capable of.
Well, an atom is 99.9% space.
I just read that if all the human beings that ever existed were shrunk into the amount of that is actually physical, right, and not the space in an atom, we would all fit into a sugar cube, all of
Yes.
us. Yeah. So why
Anything is
can't we do
possible.
anything?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's just because somehow we're in our own way, and not, to be blaming ourselves, but just there's something,
It's the mind. It's that good old mind. It's
right?
what I learned in some art and science of the soul that I studied.
Okay.
My favorite phrase from my teacher was, he would always shake his head like this, like an Indian. He was like, "The mind is no feeling and no understanding. It is like a biocomputer."
Right. Right. Bashar says the mind, the brain receives, the mind perceives, and the higher mind conceives. I think that's how it goes. So I mean, we think our brain is so like important in figuring things out, but it's the receiver,
Yes,
and then we
exactly.
mess it up from there. So yeah,
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and
absolutely.
so wonderful to see you again. And we
Yeah, and
definitely have
I'm
to.
looking forward to a hug and doing some magic at your property on a
Let's do some magic, Miche,
yes,
with a lot of people.
yeah,
Magic with the people.
right,
Well,
yeah.
thank you for being here, and thank you to my audience for yet another show with Spirit River Podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.